once lived a nobleman who considered himself the greatest storyteller in his circle, because none of his friends, his relatives, their stories matched up to the kind of stories this nobleman told. But the word around was that all his stories, all his adventures, all the lovely fantastical tales that he told were a figment of his imagination, and none of it was true. But it did not matter to him, because he got to be the cynosure of every room, telling a tale which showed him larger than life. So once this nobleman, he recruited a young servant. His name was John. So in his interview, he asked John that, John, do you like telling stories? John said, well, yes, I do like telling stories and I do like listening to them. Well, how well can you lie? But John said, let me see, I don't know how well can I lie, but it'll have to depend on the situation. Now, John was hired on the basis of this answer because something told the nobleman that this is a good fellow. He knows what's the value of a story and he knows when to tell a lie to tell a good story. So one day he was in a gathering with a group of friends, and that's when he began a story that I went hunting once upon a time and I shot 3 hares up in the air. Well, all the other people, all his friends said, well, you don't believe it. It's not true that you can't shoot 3 hares in the air. He said, well, John was there. Why don't you call him and ask him? So John was called, and John looked at everyone and said, well, yes, it is true. We were hiding in behind the bushes, and the hare jumped out of the hedge, and just when the sir fired his gun, the hare fell down. When we cut open the hare, we saw that there were 2 other hares inside. So you see, Sir did kill and hunt 3 hares with 1 bullet. Everybody shook their head and they couldn't believe what they had just heard. Well, on the way back, the nobleman patted John on the back and said, well done, John, you do a fair job of telling stories. John looked back and said, well, what you said was not a story, it was a lie. But next time you choose to lie, do keep your lies on the ground, keep them off the air. If they're on the ground, then I will be able to tell a better story around it. Well, this is the story that I told someone who asked me that I was consulting him on his business. So he asked that, do I have to really tell all authentic stories? I can make up customer testimonials and customer experiences, get my friends and family to review my product and say nice things about me. Can I just do that? And I had to tell him, well, why don't you listen to this story about a story and a lie? It's a common misconception or a myth that storytellers are liars, that we tell stories which are not true. We tell stories from our imagination. We tell stories about people larger than life doing extraordinary things. But this folktale, this German folktale, is just about that stories are not about all fantastical adventures. Stories are stories which people believe to be true. And sometimes in the world, when you have to put your point across, especially about your business, about your work, about your experience, about how authentic you are, how knowledgeable you are, you have to tell the right stories. To be a storyteller is not about being a kahanibaz, sometimes about coming up with just a story to get out of a situation, or tell a story that will make you seem like you are very real, that you have done something which others can only imagine doing in their dreams. But that's where storytelling, or authentic storytelling, is all about. When we talk about storytelling, when we train people in storytelling, we always say that forget about all the fantastical things that you've done in your dreams, that you've done in your imagination. Come down to the real stories where you are not anywhere near perfect. Talk about your failures, talk about your stumbling blocks, talk about the emotions that make you human, talk about anger, talk about disappointment, talk about guilt, talk about things which make you more real and human than the image that people want to see of you. And it's only when you accept this vulnerability, when you show yourself as vulnerable, as real. And of course, while we tell stories, we don't really tell stories of pathos to eke out sympathy from the listener, but we tell them that yes, we lived through it and this is where we are. Show them the perspective in your story, and that's when you come across as a real, authentic storyteller. Never, 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 never tell a lie. Never fabricate. Never make up a story about yourself or your business, because you will be caught. And when that happens, that is the ruin of your reputation, of your image, your personal brand that you were trying to build. So stay authentic, tell the real stories. Don't be the kind of storyteller that the noble one was, where in all his stories he was winning and shooting hares with 3 hares with 1 bullet.